Hi, I'm Dan Courtney, and I wanted to do a video today, a video review of a book written by Dr. Jason Lisle. It's called The Ultimate Proof of Creation, Resolving the Origins Debate. Now, I actually read this book about a year ago, and I did an online article reviewing the book, but I wanted to do a video version of this particular book review. And as you can see, we're actually outside today on the south shores of Lake Ontario. It's just a beautiful day. I couldn't stand doing this inside, so I came outside. In fact, yesterday, just in the waters behind me, I actually saw a juvenile bald eagle catch a fish, and I'll post the picture of that at the end of the video. But that aside, regarding the book, this is an interesting book. Clearly, Dr. Jason Lisle is from the Cornelius Van Til School of Christian Presuppositional Apologetics. This is what could be described as a, excuse the pun, a Hail Mary attempt for fundamentalist Christians to hang on to their biblical literalism. Now, Van Til described his apologetic this way. He said, quote, "The fact that so many people are placed before a full exposition of the evidence of God's existence and yet do not believe in Him has greatly discouraged us. We have therefore adopted measures of despair," unquote. Now, this despair, as Van Til notes, arises from Christianity's mounting defeats on the battlefield of science and evidence, and certainly in the last 40-plus years since Van Til confessed his despair, it certainly hasn't gotten any better. So it's not surprising that for those wishing to hold on to their fundamentalism, such a retreat away from evidence would gain popularity. However, Dr. Lisle's work is just one of a few cases in which the argument, the presuppositional argument that is, has made it into book form. Other presentations of the presuppositional argument have been quite shallow and easily refuted. But seeing that Dr. Lisle has a PhD in astrophysics, that's what he claims, I had high hopes that his book would be different. So, what does Dr. Lisle mean by the ultimate proof? Well, in his introduction, he writes, quote, "If by an ultimate proof we mean an argument that is conclusive, one for which no rational refutation is possible, then I am convinced the answer is yes. There is indeed an argument for creation that is powerful, conclusive, and has no true rebuttal. As such, it is an irrefutable argument, an ultimate proof of the Christian worldview." Well, that's quite a claim to call his argument irrefutable. The problem, of course, right off the bat, is to make such a claim, Dr. Lisle would need to know and to have refuted all possible arguments, including any possible arguments that could be made in the future. As far as I can tell, Dr. Lisle doesn't have this ability. Okay, so far arrogance 1, reason 0. But I could still hope that the astrophysicist could come up with some compelling scholarly arguments. Unfortunately, the book is anything but compelling and scholarly. It's really just a thinly veiled mockery of non-believers, or anyone, for that matter, that doesn't subscribe to young earth creationism. For example, little children are often quite arbitrary. They believe lots of things with no good reasons at all. A child might believe that there is a monster under his bed or that Santa Claus comes down his chimney every Christmas. There is no good reason, yet children do believe these things sincerely and act upon their beliefs. They pull the bed sheets over their head to protect them from the monsters. They leave out milk and cookies for Santa. We expect such arbitrariness from little children. But imagine if an adult were to behave in such a way. It would be disturbing to find an adult who seriously believed in monsters under the bed. We would be right to question his mental health. As we grow up, we are supposed to become rational, and part of being rational is learning to have a sufficient reason for what we believe. So when evolutionists fail to have a good reason for their beliefs, they are really behaving like uneducated children. The irony in equating non-believers with, quote, uneducated children, unquote, is that his book is filled with cartoons, as if his readers needed a picture book in order to follow along. And even his term for non-believers, he calls them evolutionists, misses the mark. Evolution is a scientific conclusion, not a worldview or a starting point. The term he's looking for is scientist, or perhaps rationalist, or how about atheist? But evolutionists? It's like calling someone a gravitationalist. It's really not very helpful. So the book is a rehash of standard presuppositional fare and has all the same fallacy as Van Til's arguments, begging the question, equivocation, and the stolen concept. But every once in a while there is something that's tantalizingly close to being reasonable. For example, in his Procedure for Defending the Faith chapter, he writes, "It's noteworthy that the reliability of our senses is a presupposition. It must be assumed before we can begin to investigate anything else. Even before we can read the Bible, we must presuppose that our senses are reliable." Now, I could actually agree with that. But right in the middle of the sentence, in reference to the Bible, he puts in parentheses, which contains justification for this crucial presupposition. But if you have a justification, you don't need to presuppose it. Presupposing your senses are valid so that you can trust that the Bible tells you that your senses are valid is not justification. It's an ad hoc rationalization so Dr. Lisle can conclude what he already believes. But as mocking as the illustrations and the tone of the book are, the book's most glaring insults to those of us that take these questions seriously are the last two sections. Dr. Lisle devotes nearly a third of the book to, quote, answering the critics. But instead of providing commentary from notable philosophers or skeptics, Dr. Lisle races to the bottom of the intellectual heap to give us a sampling of emails and comments left at the Answers in Genesis website, which he used to work at. Seriously, answering the critics consists of John Q. Public's email comments on a creationist website? But I did have one final hope. Introducing Appendix C, Answering the Critics, Part 2, Dr. Lisle writes, "And we are now in a position to answer some of the more advanced questions that come up in apologetics. And the very first critical question," again an email response to Answers in Genesis, "is as follows. How can a group of individuals be so misinformed and idiotic? How did you get the money to build this drivel and nonsense? My goodness, it is amazing that people can be so uneducated in this day and age. Incest was okay. You guys are obviously still practicing it. Very funny stuff. Someday when you grow up, you will look back at this and laugh at yourselves." This apparently qualifies as advanced questions. Another emailer asks, "Are you the same people who believe the earth is flat? Choke and die on your Bibles already." That such, quote, challenges to his work should make it into his book suggests that there simply are no good answers to serious criticism. The emails selected seem more geared towards persuading the gullible that presuppositionalism has no serious flaws, but it's definitely not the case. That's one reason why I've requested a debate with Dr. Lisle, to expose the gaping holes in his argument. So far he hasn't responded, and I suspect that he won't respond, preferring instead to maintain the illusion that his argument is, quote, irrefutable. Thanks for watching. If you like my videos, please subscribe, and as always, your comments are welcome. Thanks.